Okay, Mr. Stenbridge,
Present.
Mr. Valencia,
Present.
Mr. Lang.
Present.
Oh,
No, present.
okay, Mr. Langham.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken.
Present.
All right, the floor is yours, Mr. Stenbridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if you don't mind, I'll announce to folks and remind them that we are a 6-member board today. And before we go into the rediscussion scheduled for 11:30, we'll ask if there are any requests for withdrawals and deferrals or deferrals.
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Stenbridge, Attorney Brian Spitz, requesting 275 Gold Street, please.
275 Gold, which is case BOA 163-0349, again with the address of 275 Gold Street. Would you go ahead and explain, please?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stenbridge. Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Ryan Spitz with Adams and Moranci, business address of 168 H Street, first floor, South Boston. We're looking to seek an administrative deferral to be heard in front of the full 7-member board. We're actually going to request a further date, probably about 3 months approximately, as we are aware of the planning department's recommendation to resolve the accessibility issue. So again, we're restructuring those in the meantime and having conversations with the Architectural Access Board about obtaining a variance prior to moving forward or another alternative method in order to get rid of the building code relief that has been cited as well.
Thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, so just to clarify, it will just be a deferral. And the latest we could do for the end of the year would be December 10th.
Sure, we'll take December 10th, please.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
I make a motion to defer till December the 10th.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Langham,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wewell,
Yes.
Mr. Aiken.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries. See you.
Great, thank you.
And I believe there was at least one other party that spoke up.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, Madam Chair, Attorney Nick Zazula, McDermott, Quilty, Miller, and Hanley, 46 Hyde Street, Mr. Secretary.
So that would be for case BOA 1599326 with the address of 46 High Street. Would you also go ahead and explain, please?
Yes, sir. In talking with staff, Madam Chair, and looking to also address the planning board recommendation, we made some project changes. However, our understanding is we need to re-advertise in order to come back to the board because of some of those changes to the language. We also want to make sure we have time to bring those changes back to the Charlestown neighborhood and the abutters as well. So I think in speaking with staff, December 3rd was an option for re-advertising, and that would give us plenty of time to be able to circle back with all other stakeholders. So thank you.
Okay, Caroline, does that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
I make a motion to defer till December the 3rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Langham,
Yes.
Ms. Wewell,
Yes.
Mr. Aiken.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries. See you then.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a defer request as well. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mary Kate Campbell with the law firm Drago and Toscano. We're here asking for deferrals on 3 applications, 36 Layden, 36A Layden, and 20 Hinckley, due to there not being a full board.
Okay.
So
All right,
So
go
that,
ahead.
So that, those requests are for case BOA 1616380, the address of 36 Layden Street. Also for case BOA 1616384 with the address of 36A Layden Street. And for case BOA 1603160 with the address of 20 Hinckley Street. Would you go ahead and put it explain, sir?
Well, she did administrative deferral. What dates are you, how far out are you looking?
The earliest available is fine.
Okay. Carolyn?
So again, just to clarify, it's just a deferral. The earliest we have is November 19th.
Okay, that works, thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Make a motion to defer all three of those cases to November 19th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham?
Yeah.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. I have a deferral as well, please. It's 27 Dudley.
So that would be for case BOA 1552298 with the address of 27 Dudley Street. Would you go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you. Cameron Merrill on behalf of the applicant. This was a matter on last month, and planning staff had requested we submit some plans with some clarifications of questions they had. Those plans and the letter of clarification were submitted on 9/20, but unfortunately there was a miscommunication and they did not make it to the appropriate staff person for review. Therefore, they asked for a quick date to review them and report back to the board, which we're okay with.
Caroline?
We could do November 19th, November 26th, or December 3rd.
Do 11/19, please.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Motion to defer until November 19th.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham?
Yes.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Any further requests for withdrawal or deferrals in this time frame? Then with that, we will go to case BOA 1588133, the address of 190R Harris Street. If the applicant and/or their representative are present, would they please explain to the board?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Secretary, and members of the board. Attorney Matt Eckel with Fletcher Tilton on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Eric Zackerson from Context, the project architect. Just brief background, this case was previously deferred so it could be re-advertised to include the GCOD violation, which it now has been. The proposal itself, we're seeking to renovate the existing single-family dwelling, including erecting a side addition, dormers, and a sprinkler system. The zoning subdistrict is a 3F2000, and this lot, as you can see here on the screen, currently contains a three-family structure fronting on Paris Street, as well as the existing single-family structure towards the rear of the lot. The overall lot size is 3,300 square feet. As part of the renovation, we're proposing dormers on the third floor to provide some additional living space, additional windows to allow more light and air, and a small addition on the left side, as you can see where on the top left there, or you can scroll down to the next one there. You can scroll back down, thank you. Yeah, so you can see where the building bows out a little bit, both in the front and the rear, right in the middle of the screen there. That addition is proposed to be between 2 and 4 feet and provide a better entryway, foyer, and some additional living space in the 2 bedrooms above. That addition is proposed to be only on the 1st and 2nd floor. I would note, you can see very faintly there the outline of the existing deck and deck above. So even though we're proposing a slight addition on the left side of the structure, we're actually increasing the side yard setback to about 7.5 feet by taking away that previous deck, entryway and deck above. In terms of the floor plans, what you're looking at right now, we are proposing no living space in the basement. This is in a C4 district, so it's just the unfinished storage and utilities. The first floor would contain the kitchen, living and dining room, as well as a half bath. The second floor, which you can see there on the bottom left, is proposed to be 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with laundry facilities. And on the third floor, which you can see on the kind of middle right there, bottom of the page, is the primary bedroom as well as bathroom. You can see even with the dormers, the footprint of that third floor is not as big or as wide as the floors below it, because the dormers don't extend quite as far and the addition does not carry to the third floor. So that's just going to be the primary bedroom suite on the 3rd level. As mentioned, this project will include the installation of a sprinkler system, which should improve the safety of the structure, as well as upgrades to the landscaping. We went by it already, but on one of the prior slides, the site currently contains a lot of concrete in the form of walkways and just concrete areas. We're proposing to remove that and replace it with grass and permeable pavers, which you can see there in the middle of your screen, providing the access way from Paris Street to the structure. So we're proposing an overall reduction in impervious area on the site. The cited violations are all pre-existing and for the most part wouldn't apply to the current zoning today, with the exception of the GCOD violation. And for that, we did submit our approved plan from Water and Sewer and our no harm letter through the board. As part of this process, we met with the Maverick Central Neighborhood Association as well as the abutters, and the association did vote to support the project. With that, I'll pause and take any questions the board may have.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board?
Madam Chair, I have a question. I had a hard time following the changes in the plans from the planning memo with the plans that were submitted. And what I think happened is that increase in permeability was shown, but only on the architectural site plan and not on the survey. Can you confirm that, and can you take us through where the changes from concrete to permeability are? And then I guess my next question is to planning, how do we address discrepancies between surveys and architectural plans, and which plans govern?
Sure. So for the first part, if you could, Madam Ambassador, go back up to, I believe, slide 2. Yeah, here, and the coloring's a little tough to see here, but maybe if you can zoom, yeah, you can zoom out. The bottom shows the existing, and you can see that concrete pathway from Paris Street all the way to the rear of the property extends. You can see how it's kind of outlined in the shaded purplish color. And then on the top of that, the bottom half of the screen, but the top little portion, there's also a little concrete, almost patio area right on the property line. So those are proposed to be removed and infilled with grass. And then you can see the new walkway is less overall space and is also proposed to be permeable pavers. So that's the change we're proposing.
Okay, so I don't think that's on the survey. It is still largely showing as concrete. So how, I guess, is the expectation that survey is changed? I mean, I just always rely on the survey for that information versus the architectural site plan. But I don't know if Mr. Hampton is around to jump in how that's handled.
Mr. Hampton, are you with us?
Waiting for the mics to get everything going. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Jeff Hampton, City of Boston Planning Department. Yes, Ms. Wewell, we had actually seen these plans. We do share your concern. However, we were going through the architectural drawings, and as you saw in our original recommendation that was back in September, our recommendation was to deny it without prejudice so that they can increase the permeable area. Our recommendation this time, we had already seen these plans. At the time, I don't know if ISD had seen or stamped the plans for this site. We are satisfied with the increase in permeability, and that's why our vote has changed to approval with design review. We would have recommended deferral if ISD had not seen this. So I know it's a little confusing on our part, especially with that vote, but we're satisfied with the increase of the permeability, and we recommend it.
And it's okay that that's not shown on the survey?
I mean, we can ask them to submit a new survey.
Okay.
You know, the board could ask them to submit a new survey showing these changes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? With that, may I have public testimony?
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Eva Jones, representing the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. Regarding 190R Paris Street, our office will defer to the board's judgment on this matter. A community process was conducted, including an abutters meeting held on 5/2/2024, which was lightly attended by 2 constituents. The feedback from this meeting was primarily from the Melee family, which are direct abutters to the property. Some concerns cited were construction noises disturbing the elderly matriarch of the family, and setbacks. They also did submit a letter of opposition to the proposal, while the other constituent expressed support for the proposal and was happy to see a building that was a rundown eyesore being beautified. The applicant explained that the setbacks were existing violations and that there was nothing they could do about that, and that due to tight space of the project, many machine construction vehicles would not be able to fit, and therefore the construction would actually be quieter than usual but take a little bit longer. Additionally, the proposal was reviewed by Maverick Central Civic Association, which convened on 6/19/24. The association expressed support regarding the project and voted yes to the proposal, and they did also provide a letter of support. At this time, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services defers to the board's judgment. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, Christian?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Christian Simonelli, Boston Groundwater Trust, and we have both G-card letters from the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no additional raised hands.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Motion to approve with planning department design review.
Is there a second?
I'll second, and can I add the proviso that the survey be updated to reflect the architectural site plan in terms of areas with permeable surfaces?
The short answer is yes.
Okay, with that, Mr. Stenbridge.
If I can remember.
No, I mean, you just have to say yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Thank you, yes.
I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Caroline.
Could we actually, I'm sorry, could we repeat both provisos one more time?
Would you like to try it, Mr. Stenbridge?
I'll give it a
We
shot.
can do the abbreviated version. Planning department review and updated survey. How's that?
Make motion of approval with planning department review. And I apologize. The second part again.
Updated survey.
Update with survey approved.
Okay, can we get a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge,
Yes.
Mr. Valencia,
Yes.
Mr. Lang,
Yes.
Ms. Wewell,
Yes.
Mr. Aiken.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have case BOA 1542650 with the address of 226 Magnolia Street. If the applicant and or their representative present, would they please explain the case to the board?
I am, Mr. Secretary. Hello, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good morning to you. This is Mike Ross on behalf of the applicant, attorney at One International Place, Prince Bell. I'm here with the architect Beth McDougall. This project has gone through numerous versions and probably 6 or 7 revisions to date. The initial project was an Article 80 project with 28 units back in 2021. It was reduced to a 14-unit building that was denied by this board on February 28th, 2023. We spent the last year and 3 quarters replacing the architect and working through the community process, where we presented an 8-unit plan in November of last year to the community, followed by a 6-unit plan that we were prepared to share with the board at our last appearance on this matter in August in front of this board. However, we reviewed the comments by Boston Planning at the time, which spent a lot of time talking about the rear yard and the open space in the rear. And so now we're presenting a 5-unit plan down from 6 units to accommodate those concerns that were raised by Boston Planning. The other items, incidentally, raised by Boston Planning, they generally supported the other relief, stating that the immediate area is characterized with pairs of attached 3-unit buildings that present as 6-unit multifamily dwellings. Sorry, Madam Ambassador, that was a long preamble to go right back to where you were on the site plan on page 1, which if you look at this carefully, so what you see here, it shows an existing 11-bay brick garage building in the gray diagonal hash marks on the screen there. And it runs the entire length of the building with just a 2.9 foot rear yard existing. The darker black hash marks on top of that show the envelope of what we're proposing, which is the 5-unit building. That would create a 16.25 rear yard setback from the rear of the property. And that was the adjustment. That was the main adjustment that we made since our August scheme when we came out here, wanting to have that larger rear yard setback and the open space in the rear. If you look at the width of this parcel from side to side, on the left-hand side of the property as you face the property, so on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that there's a 16-foot setback from the property line. 16 feet, where only 10 feet is required. And this was deliberately done in order to allow a generous setback to our neighbor, who's at 220 Marginal Street. And then there's an easement of that shared driveway where it's the property of the petitioner, but the easement is on the property to allow for the access to the 220 Marginal Street along that shared driveway. And then I just want to point out that the lot sticks out itself a full 15 feet longer than the other lots that are to its right or to your left as you're looking at this plan. So it's not an apples to apples comparison of where the rear yard of the building or where the rear building of the neighbors are versus where the rear building of ours is, since it runs longer than the other lots to its left. Page 2, please, Madam Ambassador. This is an existing condition photo showing that 11-bay parking garage structure that's existing and the existing driveway. And then you can see there's a red car. So that red car is roughly sitting within that easement I mentioned, whereas the white car is outside the easement and it's on the petitioner's property. Boston Planning points out that the plan to replace parking with housing is a goal that's illuminated in the Housing a Changing City 2030 planning document as well. And then the building to the right, you can see it there on the left, and you can see a little bit on the right photo. That building to the right comes right out to the property line, similar to what we're proposing, and the heights are very close between what we're proposing as well. Let's go to page 4, actually. We'll skip this next, the title page, and go directly to page 4. There you go. I think, yeah. All right, so what we see here is these are the first floor plans with garage parking for 1 parking space for each unit. It also shows landscaping on the rear and the front of the building, as well as standalone trees, which are represented by the squares. There's 3 of them in between the parking portals. And then the driveway itself is built on a porous cobblestone-like grade to allow for maximum groundwater retention. Next slide, please. So this shows that same parking area with now the second floor of living above it. And for the units, these are all 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath townhouse style units. The interior units, the 3 on the inside, units 2, 3, and 4, are approximately 1,375 square feet, not including the garage. And then the 2 end units, unit 1 and unit 5, are just under 1,500 square feet each. Next slide, please. So this shows you floors 3, so the 3rd floor where you have 2 bedrooms and a bath, and then the 2/3 floor, if you will, above where you have the 3rd bedroom and the bath, full bath. Next slide, please. So here what you have is the left side elevation. This faces 220 Marginal Street. You can see this gradual decreasing per unit of 1.5 feet per unit. So it starts at the cornice line, at the sidewalk, at 41.5 at the top of the building. So technical height might be slightly less, but that cornice line is shown at 41.5, which is close to the building to the right. And then as a result of the grading of the slope of this site, which slopes backwards, as I mentioned, it drops to all the way down to the top of that being about 35 feet, 35.5 feet. And the architect made sure that the window placement was deliberately placed in such a way that it does not line up with windows from the abutting property, which is still probably about 20 feet away from this face. Next slide, please. Then this is the other side of that building, as viewed from the other building. Again, windows were laid out to not align with the abutting property. So this is an elevation, so the front on the left. And as you can see here, that setback of that 2/3 floor there was deliberate again, so as to step back from the neighbor at 220 Marginal Street. And then on the other side, that's from the rear of the building. Next slide, please. Here we've roughed in the other buildings to show you. I'd note that substantial distance between the building to the left and the proposed building. Next slide, please. And here's a rendering of how the property will fit, into the site with the landscaping to further assist that. I'll just mention the zoning real quick, Madam Chair. The use, this is a multifamily within a 3F1 housing district. The additional lot area that's required per unit was triggered. The FAR here is only 1.33, but the FAR for the code is a 0.8 in this area. The building height, we are triggering height and stories. So we're at 3 2/3 stories, and we would need to be at 3 for this area. And the height I mentioned was 41.5 at the topmost cornice in a 35 open space. Now, open space, we were able to increase that, but we still are only at 300 per unit, where 650 is cited in the code per dwelling unit. The front yard, we were cited for. We're probably close to modal, but we didn't provide a modal study. The side yard on one side, we're well over that side yard, and we stepped back only 3 on the right-hand side in order to make a substantial setback on that left-hand side. And normally a 10 is required. And so again, the rear yard, we were cited for the rear yard. We just, this site requires a 30. But I'll point out that at 16 1/4, we're pretty close to the 20 that's cited for multifamily subdistricts. I think that's worth mentioning. The final thing to say here is that the Boston is for today is still for the 6-unit building. So I'm not sure how they would respond to the 5-unit building that we're presenting here to you. We did listen to them. We didn't get all the way. We didn't get to 30. We couldn't. This building probably wouldn't be buildable in that case. But we really did pull this back in order to reflect on those comments that they made. But still, their comments are still relating to the older 6-unit and not this 5-unit building. I'll pause there.
Thank you. Mr. Hampton, would you like to weigh in? Because that was my first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Jeff Hampton, City of Boston Planning Department. This is something where I don't think the plan's really caught up, because even looking through what I have now, I do not have a stamped set from ISD showing the 5. I only have it for the 6, which is why we still based our recommendation on the 6. I wouldn't want to guess how we would weigh in on a 5-unit building. I will say for the record, though, that we do appreciate the developer's effort to take all of our recommendation on our previous recommendation and integrate that into the new plans. But not having a stamped set from ISD, I'd be wary to offer any change in our recommendation. So right now, I'm going to stand with our original recommendation and recommend denial without prejudice.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
I have a question. This isn't really particularly oriented to the street, with all the ground level as garage. Was there any consideration to sort of make that front elevation a little bit more attractive along the streetscape or pedestrian friendly?
Yeah, I mean, through the chair, Ms. Rewell, it's a fair observation. All the other schemes that we presented were front-facing schemes. I mean, this is a situation where you have a long, narrow lot. And in those situations, it's not a surprise that we're in front of your board. It's just a completely different lot than any of the other lots around it in this sub-district. And given its length and you saw that 11-bay garage, given its length, it really became the only way we could create more units, but increase the setback from the abutters and respond to some of the concerns that they were presenting. All the other schemes that did have front-facing, they sort of landed with a thud. They didn't work, and we couldn't get there. This is the closest we've been, and while it doesn't face the street like some of the other houses, you do see these types of buildings throughout Boston, particularly when you have these long, narrow lots in this situation.
Mr. Ross, can you comment on whether you've gone back to the community with this updated proposal? We continue to receive a lot of opposition on this, and it's unclear to me whether they've seen this version or the last version.
Yeah, we did. As recently as after that meeting with you in August, thanks to the good offices of Councilor Worrell, he hosted a meeting with the direct abutter where we represented these plans. And we probably had 6 or 7 community meetings on the last one being the 6-unit. And then this was an effort to just pull back that 5th to the 5th 5 units. And then that meeting was held with the most affected abutter, the owner of that house you see in front of you, 220 Marginal, where we presented this plan. And I don't think we got there. We had tried, but this is the best that the team could do in terms of, whittling this down to the most buildable lot that we can build.
Okay, so just to clarify, it sounds to me what you said is only the direct abutter has seen this version? Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, yeah, ONS did not require a 5th or 6th abutter meeting on this removal of that back unit. They did see the 6-unit plan. We re-advertised this with the Zoning Board of Appeals, so the advertisement you see in front of you today says 5 units. We're not here on the 6-unit scheme.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes,
Yes, I
Madam
have
Chair.
one small, go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Alan.
I just have one small question. In the near future, will this be ownerships or rental property?
I believe, no, this is absolutely ownership. This is ownership. And the reason why I had to remember, because I have a couple projects before you today, is because questions like where to put out the garbage, for example, came up. And that's something that can be worked through in the condo docs, and exactly how people can put their garbage out. Also parking, that no one can park in front of the driveways. That's going to be put into the condo docs as well. Those were issues that came out. And with condos, you can control that a lot better than with rentals.
I got just one more question. Is it any more townhouses on Magnolia Street?
There are a range of everything on Magnolia Street. You know, from the building to our right, which is that kind of typical apartment building in brick, to this two-family, almost more residential, more to our left. Across the street, there's, I think, a one-family, but then there are multifamilies all up and down the street. You have literally everything, and I would suspect that somewhere up there are the townhouse design as well, but I cannot completely recall. But if you take a little Google walk, you'll see there's almost every kind of property out there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Aiken?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to understand a little bit more the lot width and part of the challenge. It looks like you have a 46-foot wide lot. It looks like you have a 8-foot easement. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, when you're talking about the uniqueness of the lot being very deep and narrow, I'm struggling with the narrowness of it in terms of why that's preventing street frontage. It seems like it's just a desire to address the unit typologies and less the actual narrowness of the lot. So just to walk us through that, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, the easement itself and the driveway do not help the narrowness of this condition. It might be 46, but we have to maintain that easement for the abutting property. So our desire to say retool that driveway, for example, that's off the table. So now we have to preserve the driveway that you see right there. So the real space that we have to work with is not the full 46 width of that lot. It's minus, in the end, that will be about 10 or 12 feet. That's really what we're working with, and going all the way down. With every scheme, we had to leave that open, and the easement itself does not allow building above it. So that further complicated the dynamics of this particular parcel.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, can I have public testimony?
Madam Chair and members of the board, for the record, my name is Jeremy Bembury. I am the Roxbury Community Engagement Specialist for the Office of Neighborhood Services. The applicant has completed the community process, which consisted of an abutters meeting on May 22nd, where there was heavy opposition from all the abutters. The major concerns were the size of the project, stating it is too large for the neighborhood, as well as congestion, parking, rodents. The direct abutter has voiced concerns of the surrounding foundation. The project was presented to the civic group Roxbury Neighborhood Council, where again the project was met with heavy opposition, referencing the size of the project, who also voted to oppose the project. They were asked to come back if there were any changes to the unit count, which I don't believe that has been set up at this time. We have also received approximately 13 letters of opposition from direct abutters to the zoning, received and sent to the zoning board. Thank you for your time in the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. I'd like to defer to the board for their judgment at this time.
Thank you.
Brian?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Abdullah Beckett with City Councilor Brian Worrell. In regards to 226 Magnolia Street, having received many letters of opposition from the abutting neighbors. Due to the excessive height, the councilor will go on record as deferring to the judgment of the board. Thank you.
Okay, Tamika and then Mike. Hi, my name is Tamika. I'm actually the director butter about this project. I'm definitely in opposition of this project. This 5-unit never went on to the community process, so a lot of the neighbors didn't even know nothing about the 5 units, including myself. So I'm kind of appalled that he even said that I knew about this when it was proposed for 6 units and 6 parking spaces. And we did not go through the direct community process correctly. Also, I have safety, environmental concerns. I also have a family member that has a disability. So I feel like he's trying to encroach my driveway that's been utilized for my family for many years and try to consider 5 units and also 5 units and 5, whatever it is now, since he kind of drastically changed these plans at the last minute and not go through the formal process. The fact of the matter is, Ceylon Park is definitely behind where I live. Since we're bringing this up, the fact that there's environmental concerns, asbestos concerns, the fact that the park recreation should be aware of this proposed project, considering the fact that if they're gonna start doing any kind of stuff around here, that's gonna be imposing on Ceylon Park or contaminating the grounds. That needs to be addressed. There's a fire hydrant also in front of that parcel as well. And not only that, I'm concerned about asbestos since that garage is old. And like I said, my family's been living here for many, many years. As far as the parking spaces go, we've been the one taking care of that driveway for many, many years on down on. So I'm just speaking on behalf of my family members, since my family don't want to be on this meeting because they're too disgusted about this whole process. So I'm speaking on behalf of myself, since I am the direct abutter that he's referring to, that did not know anything about those 5 units in those 5 plans being changed as quickly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mike? My name is Michael Kozu, Project Right, 320A Blue Avenue. We hosted several meetings and worked with several neighbors expressing their concerns. In addition, we still feel that the building is still significantly higher because of the upslope over the 2-family house that the budding house of the Johnsons. We feel that there's questions about what's the water runoff coming in off of the slope from that property down their driveway down into the abutting property. As you notice, the garages all face the abutting property, so all the headlights will be faced right into the property. Several of the windows, despite the realignment, still will be able to peer into the abutting property with no privacy as well. So we feel that there's still significant issues. They have not completed the follow-through with this new project with the community process. Plus, if they don't have the stamped approval of these designs with planning, then how can we respond and interact with how planning department has expressed their concerns from before? So we still stand in opposition to this proposal.
Thank you.
Lavette?
Lavette sent a request to unmute you.
Oh, sorry. I thought that I had to go online, and so I was filling that out at the meantime.
Oh, okay. So we have no additional ways to, let me just.
Yes.
No, Lavette.
No,
I'm sorry about that. Oh, okay.
Okay, this is Lavette Coney on behalf of Mount Pleasant Forest and Vine Association, and we are also opposed. We honestly believe that the process has to be adhered to, and people who live in the neighborhood should have a say because of the fact that if they're going to change anything, if they did as of right, that'd be one thing, but I don't believe that it's a garage. So the fact that that hasn't happened is very concerning. So we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional raised hands.
Mr. Ross, can you address that so it doesn't sound like people are aware of these changes? And can you also just comment on the driveway issue as to whether that impedes on 220's driveway?
Well, it does not. The easement is a shared easement. Both parties are allowed to use it. It is on the land that is owned by the petitioner. The white car I showed you in those plans is the abutter's car being parked on the petitioner's property outside of the easement. That red car was in the easement. The only part of that driveway that's shared is that red car part. But nonetheless, we kept that parking area completely open. This has been an acrimonious process, as you might have picked up. The developer lives within a mile of this proposed location, yet he's been accused over and over as being some out-of-town person who's coming into this neighborhood to build something. As the plans evolved and changed, they were specifically designed to respond to the comments that you heard, to the extent where we're now left with comments that really no longer bear on the massing of the structure, talking about water runoff and those things. In fact, the basement was removed from this property, which was previously the location of the parking, so as to not provide any further disruption to the foundations, which was an issue that came up over and over again. And that substantial setback from the abutter's property was designed to accommodate the concerns. I will also swear to you as an attorney and an officer of the court that we met with the abutter and showed her these plans, the 5-unit plans. In terms of the, and we had probably, like I said, 6 or 7 community meetings. Several of them were these advertised abutter meetings that were held. I don't think it's uncommon for a petitioner to appear before the board with a lesser included plan, essentially removing that floor to accommodate and meet the concerns that were raised in the neighborhood process. That's the exact circumstance we find ourselves here. What we're providing is a lesser included version of what was initially proposed in order to meet those community plans. It was done in an effort not to be wielded as a weapon, but to be used as a bridge to get there. And what you're hearing is that that's now become the basis for which this plan shouldn't properly be before you, which I suggest it should be. So it's just was a very acrimonious process. I wasn't pleasant, but we tried to make the best of it. We tried to present something that was respectful. The headlights will not hit the other abutter. The cars will pull into the parking and pull out of the parking and leave the parking without hitting the abutter. The entire plan was designed in such a way to try to meet the concerns, but every time we tried to meet one concern, a new concern popped up. And at this point, the petitioner just said, look, let's just go forward, and there's nothing else he can do. And we've tried every iteration. I will say, though, to Member Wewell's comment, we could put a front door on that, on the front of that building. That could be placed, and that would be a very easy proviso to add, because I do think that that's a fair point.
Thank you. Jessica, it does look like there are additional community raised hands.
Sure, do you want to go back to public comments?
Yes.
This is Holly Shepard. Second. Holly, and then the Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a member of the Roxbury Neighborhood Council, and we did meet with this project after hearing from the abutters about their disapproval of the project and its oversize. We invited the proponent to come back with a reduced plan if there was going to be one, and have not heard from them. This really seems like a sleight of hand to not give the new plan to BPDA and all of the other parties that were trying to vet this project. And again, we disagree with the height and the oversized structure.
Thank you. And ma'am, just to confirm, the last version you've seen is the 6-unit version?
Yes.
Thank you.
Garrison Trotter?
This is Connie Force from our Roxbury Neighborhood Council speaking. And yes, there are no stamp plans, and the fact that it's nice that one resident was involved with the change in the number of units, but when you change a project, there should be a process where you go back to the abutters and the community to let them know. It shouldn't be just one meeting. So I think that the entire process has been just ineffective in communicating with residents. And I don't understand why headlights would not be, if a car is pointing to a building, would not be seen in a budding neighbor's home. So this project is, I believe denial without prejudice is a good situation until they can go before the community, have the review done, and come back with an explanation. Because I still don't know if the abutter is still going to be able to park as they have for years in their driveway. That's not clear. And the curb cut that's being shown, I don't believe will allow cars to go into the other side. So there are still questions, and I think that we need to have answers before we approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I want to make one note that the board does have stamped plans from ISD. It just sounds like perhaps they didn't make its way to planning. But I'm going to put forward a motion of denial without prejudice. I think this needs a little more work. You know, as members of the board, we're always considering, can things be fixed in design review? But I think the issues driving this site sort of outweigh anything that can be fixed in design review. So I'm going to make a motion to deny without prejudice.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yeah.
Mr. Valencia?
I am okay with the 5 units. I think they may change it from 8 to 6 and then to 5. So I'm okay with the number of units. But I agree with Ms. Wewell that they need to just go back to the planning department, share the new drawings, and go back to the residents in the area, the abutters, and show them the changes that they already made based on the request. I'm okay with the number of units, but I am going to vote yes to the motion that Ms. Wewell presented.
Thank you. Mr. Langham?
Yes.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Sorry, there's another noise. Yes, I agree with Ms. Wewell's motion. I vote yes for that. I do understand that the lot has certain constraints that make it a different width and different depth than others, but there's real issues to deal with on the street frontage here, the orientation of the buildings, the height and the setback from the property line, and there are likely ways to do that to achieve an outcome that's reasonable. And so I will, that's my motion to defer without prejudice.
Deny without prejudice. The chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Next, we have case BOA 163-2317 with the address of 61 Linden Street. If the applicant and their representative and/or their representative present, will they please explain the case to the board?
I am, Mr. Secretary. This is Mike Ross again, One International Place, Principal Bell. I'm here on behalf of the property owner, Phoebe Nguyen, a longtime Dorchester resident who lives across the street from this property. I'm also here with the architect, Artin Siddiqui. So the plan here is to replace an existing ranch-style one-family home with a 3-story, 6-unit building with balconies and parking. I was initially in front of the board 1 month ago, but we pulled the plan in order to pull the building back just slightly in order to allow for buffering around the parking area. There was no buffering around the parking area, and I know it comes up from time to time here. So we did that, and we came back. This rendering here shows an existing one-family ranch to the right. So the proposed would have been one of 2 ranches that were in succession. So there's that other ranch is to the right. And then, but you see a pretty high 3-family to your left, roughed in there. I think we have a photo that we'll show you in a second. The parking will be accessed where that red car is using the existing driveway on the right-hand side of the building. Next slide, please. So here what you see is the site plan. You'll see the 5 parking spaces behind the building, and you'll now see that 5-foot buffer along those parking spaces that wasn't there previously that we've since added. Next slide, please. So this is that photograph that shows the existing property, that ranch, with the existing driveway and curb cut, as well as that taller building with the gabled roof to the left of the property. And then in the foreground, you can't see it, is another ranch, roughly the same shape and dimension of what you see in that photo. Next slide, please. So here we have that landscape plan where there's a diverse planting of trees and bushes. And then there's also a zoning chart on this page. Okay. Next slide, please. The basement is just all storage, accessible along the side and also through the main stair. And it also has a bike storage room as well. Next slide, please. So here's on the first floor, units 1 and 2. They're both 2-bedroom, 2 baths, and they're both just over 1,000 square feet each. And the next slide, please. You'll see the second and third floor plans. These are units 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. They're also 2-bedroom, 2 baths. They're around 1142, and you can see that there are balconies off of each of the living rooms of these units. So there's a total of 4 balconies coming off of the those 4 units. Next slide, please. Here you have the front elevation with the protruding bays. The height's consistent with the 35 height limitation. We're at 31.5 feet. You can see those balconies coming off the sides. Here we have the side elevation. This actually reveals that kind of first floor pulled back in order to allow for that buffering accommodation that we made to the parking area. And that resulted in a slight reduction in the square footage as well. Yeah, next slide. And this is just the rear of the elevation. Yeah, and so just on zoning, Madam Chair, off-street parking, we have 5 spaces, but 7.5 are required. There's a maneuverability site. These spaces are 8.5 by 15. Probably go to the site plan, Madam Ambassador. The building alignment we were cited for the front yard. For Article 65.8 for use, this is a multifamily in a 2F district. FAR here is a 0.5 in this neighborhood. We're at a 1.17. Building height is fine, but stories is not. We're 3 and a 2.5. The side yard, we're close. We're 7.8 on one side and 12.5 on the other in a 10. I'll pause there, Madam Chair.
Questions from the board?
One quick question. What has informed having just a 15-foot deep parking spot? That maneuverability or something else?
Yeah, I looked through it before I came up here. I couldn't lay my hands on it. Arten's on the call, the architect, if he wants to chime in. We couldn't get that full zone required dimension, and so that triggered the maneuverability, I believe.
Yes, to add to that, thank you, Mr. Aiken. The Boston Transportation Department is recommending the removal of 1 parking space. I think they are recommending to remove from 1, so 5 to 4, and to design the parking in 45-degree angle. I'm not sure if Mr. D'Amico is here, if he wants to add any more to his comment, but Mr. Ross, did you have any conversations with the Transportation Department about changing the parking configuration?
No, I mean, we assumed that if we had to do that, we would do that and accommodate that, that requirement. But we did want to try to get at least close to the 1 unit per, 1 space per unit, but we understand the comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Mr. D'Amico, did you want to add to that?
Yes, Madam Chair Lady and members of the board, Bob D'Amico, BTD. 15 feet is much too small. The minimum we have is usually 18 feet. So there's no way 5 spaces can fit based on the plans that have been submitted. However, if the parking spaces are placed on a 45-degree angle, then you can fit 4, but 15 foot in length and 5 spaces, it just won't work. So I just wanted the board to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none, can I have public testimony?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. This time the Mayor's Office would like to defer to the judgment of this board. Due to personnel changes, we don't have a lot of information from the initial abutters meeting, but the applicant did go on to meet with the Fields Corner Civic Association, which was supportive of this proposal. With that, we'll defer to the board at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other raised hands? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Chair, I make a motion of approval with review, with planning department review, and provides the project removes 1 parking space and improves parking configuration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yeah.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham?
Yes.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have case BOA 1575600 with the address of 214 Norwell Street. If the applicant and/or their representative are present, would they please explain the case to the board?
Yes, Mr. Stenbridge. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Attorney Justin Burns from Virginia Norton, business address 10 Forbes Road, Braintree, Mass. I'm here on behalf of the proponent and owner of this project, Daniel Rose. Also with me today is Chris Drew, 686 Architects, who will present the plans. Just to provide a quick overview, this is a proposal to construct a 3-story, 3-unit apartment building with 3 off-street parking spaces upon a currently existing vacant lot at 214 Norwell Street in Dorchester. This lot is currently paved with asphalt and is being used as a parking lot for 212 Norwell. The mix of the building would be as follows. Unit 1 would be the first floor unit. That would be 3-bed, 1-bath at 769 square feet. Unit 2 would be the second floor unit, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,077 square feet. And Unit 3 would be the third floor unit, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,077 square feet. I just want to note that this property is deed restricted as a yard sale property, and accordingly the proponent has entered into a preliminary agreement with MOH to provide one of the 3 units as an affordable unit. That agreement has been signed by both parties and has been provided to ZBA. Additionally, as part of our conversations with MOH, we updated our initial floor plans from the first time that we came to the board and deferred for that reason back in September. Originally, that first floor unit had 2 beds. After talking to MOH, we wanted continuity amongst the units so that the affordable unit would be the same as the 2 units above. So now all units are 3 beds. These updates had no impact on our violations and were reviewed by ISD prior to coming to the board, and they were also supplied to ZBA. I will now pass it off to Chris Drew to go over the plans. Chris?
Thank you, Justin. So again, as Justin had already gone over, Unit 1, which is the ground floor plan, is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. The second floor is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, as well as the third floor is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. The Unit 2 and Unit 3 are just over 1,000 square feet, and Unit 1 is about 700, it's just under 800 square feet, about 768 square feet. The elevations themselves are pretty generic of a typical 3-decker. We also, paid attention to have some parking, but also take away a lot of the paving that currently exists on the lot to get more green space. At this point, happy to answer any questions and go from there.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board? Hearing none, can I have public testimony?
Madam Chair and members of the board, for the record, my name is Jeremy Bembury. I am the Mid-Dorchester Community Engagement Specialist for the Office of Neighborhood Services. The applicant has completed the community process, which consisted of an abutters meeting on June 13th. No abutters attended and no concerns were voiced. The project then went before the Civic West of Washington who voted to support the project with a letter of support, which was received and sent to the zoning board. Thank you for your time, and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services would like to defer to the board for the judgment at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no raised hands at the moment.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion?
Can I make a motion of, go ahead, Norm.
Go ahead, Gio.
Thank you. I make a motion of approval with planning department review.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have case BOA 1398736 with the address of 5 Warren Avenue. If the applicant and or their representative are present, would they please explain the case to the board?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is Attorney John D. Barry from the law offices of John D. Barry, located at 10 Forbes Road, West, Suite 210 in Braintree, Mass. With me on this particular project is James Christopher, the principal manager of 686 Architects. We share a similar office address at 10 Forbes Road. Essentially, what this proposal is to erect a new structure altogether and convert the occupancy of the existing site from a 2-family to a 9-unit structure. The proposed parking would be entirely enclosed below, at grade, below the building. This is 5 Warren Ave, located in Hyde Park. It is a 3F4000 zoning sub-district of the Hyde Park neighborhood. If we could actually highlight not this particular slide, the one that is one more down. Ambassador, if you could, yep. What I wanted to highlight here for the board is just a little bit of the context and history of this particular proposal. So this proposal was filed in July of 2022. The reason for the time that it's taken for us to get in front of this board is actually the amount of work that we've done in the community and with various engineers and architectural firms actually were changed as we were going through this process, and the Concom aspect of this particular proposal. We have not gone before Concom, not out of a desire to come to the ZBA first, but rather that Concom requested that we get approvals from the zoning board in order to complete that process. What I would like to highlight though is, I think this picture right here, this survey actually tells the story of how we got to where we got. So ultimately this was a 10-unit project. We ultimately had to shrink it to 9 in order to make the building as tight as possible and outside of that 25-foot buffer line. There was initially a BPDA recommendation, more so related to how close the building sits right now to the front of the lot. And also we shifted the building in order to accommodate BPDA recommendation, and moving it in this picture to your right. Ultimately at the site, it is as far west as the building can be placed. Just for context as well for the board, all of the sites surrounding this particular site, it's a very commercial U-Haul facility, and to the north of the picture that you're looking at right here, there's a roughly 4-story, 45-unit apartment building owned by Mr. Garrity, or the Garrity Company. I bring all of that up to say we understand the context. This is a larger building for a 3F4000 neighborhood, but when you take into account that this is roughly a 9,000 square foot lot and what is going on around this particular site, we feel that this is actually a good proposal for the community. It's a huge enhancement to this site, and actually, if this was to be approved and after Concom, it will make the conditions at this site better than it currently exists. Moving through the plans, if we can move forward to the next slide. This lays out the parking. So there is a BPDA recommendation that some of the parking, there may be maneuverability or size issues. The reason why we left this as is as this board's aware, all of that could be addressed during the planning department review. We were trying to keep as many parking spots as possible, both underneath the building and off the site, to allow for as much green space as possible, which right now there's roughly 5,300 square feet of green space on this particular site. If the planning department has some issues with maneuverability of the size of any of these spots, they can certainly amend that during their review of this particular site. Moving forward, if we go to the next page, please. This is just roughly the basement is going to be just simple storage and for the elevator shaft. Next slide, please. If we could go one more, that's the same as the site plan. Essentially, all of the floors mimic each other. Each floor right now consists of a 1, a 2, and a 3 bedroom. The unit number 1 in this particular floor is a 1 bedroom, 1 bath at 742 square feet. Unit 2 is a 2 bedroom, 2 bath that's 996 square feet. Unit 3 is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath that's 1,224 square feet. Each floor mimics each other as you go up, ranging. The 1 bedrooms range from 742 square feet to roughly 908 square feet on the 3rd floor. The 2 bedrooms range from 971 square feet to 996. And the 3 bedrooms range from 1,107 square feet to 1,224. Going through the zoning code violations that we're addressing here, the code in this particular area would request 18 parking spots. 9 was the amount that we could fit underneath the building without having to put parking on the site and take away any of the green space. The FAR that the code requires is 0.8. Here we are at 1.1. We did run into violations for both height and stories. So the building sits at 51 feet and at 4 stories to accommodate that first story of parking. And there is the front yard in this particular area would recommend 20 feet. The final rendition that we put before this board has, I believe, maybe 5 feet or a 6 foot front yard in order to accommodate the Boston's plan as far as the open streets plan. But if the BPDA would like the building to be shifted back, we wanted to show something that was as far outside of that buffer zone as possible that we previously highlighted. And there is a rear yard setback and a side yard. The side yard was triggered by moving the building as far to the west of the site and keeping it away from the river as far as possible. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions from the board.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a couple, but I'll just start with one, Madam Chair. My first question is just that you have two plot plans or surveys here, and it looks like the 25-foot wetlands buffer line is in very different locations on both of them. Can you just explain that? Because obviously that informs the design of the building.
So initially, the first one I believe was done. The second one is the one that we did have checked both by the engineer that is producing all the plans for hopefully our Concom application. I promise you that that is the correct one. We actually did refile this set of plans and made sure that it got before the board that had the corrected one with the 25-foot buffer line sitting outside of this structure.
Conservation Commission has not yet agreed to that, though, yet. You have not filed, because you have not filed to them. Is that right?
We tried. They said that they wanted to see some set of final plans and us to come before the zoning board before we could file with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, can I have public testimony? Is anyone on for this case? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Connor Newman with the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Services. At this time, the Mayor's Office could defer to the judgment of this board. Previously, ONS had run an abutters meeting. There had been a desire from residents to try to have as much parking as possible for this site. During the process with the Hyde Park Neighborhood Association, as you heard from the applicant, there was a desire for them to reach out to the Conservation Commission, which they did make contact with, and the commission just asked that if approved, the applicant return back to the commission and continue to work with them on the final design. With that, we'll defer to the board at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other raised hands?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I have no additional raised hands at the moment.
Okay, may I have a motion?
How about a motion to approve with BPDA design review?
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stenbridge?
Yeah.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
The chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Okay, so it looks like, are we waiting until 1 to hear the reconsideration?
Yes, we are.
All right, see everyone then. Mr. Stembridge.
Recording in progress.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, sorry, just doing a roll call. Mr. Valencia.
Yes, I'm me, present.
Mr. Langham.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Lelo.
Present.
Mr. Aiken.
Present.
Okay, the floor is yours, Mr. Stembridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we go to the reconsideration, case scheduled for 1 p.m. We'll remind folks that we are a 6-member committee today. And if there are no requests for withdrawals or deferrals, then we will move on to case BOA 1542657 with the address of 548 East 3rd Street. If the applicant and/or Attorney Ross are present, would they please explain the case to the board?
I'm here, Mr. Secretary. Thank you for that. This is Mike Ross from Prince LaBelle, International Place. And this is a reconsideration. I just want to refresh everyone's recollection of this. This is a 3-family residential building with 2 parking spaces in an MFR subdistrict in the South Boston neighborhood district. We were before this board on March 26th of this year, and we were denied without prejudice. And we're now seeking reconsideration for several points. I provided the board with a letter from my July 25th, but I just want to hit the high points of that letter and then open up, if that's okay, Madam Chair. The first reason is administrative. Goes to the fact that the petitioner was unaware at the time that there was a 6-member board, as no announcement was made at the 11 a.m. call. And as was made here, actually, at the 1 o'clock call and at the 11:30 call, the secretary did reiterate that, but that did not happen when we met initially on this. We are unaware that we lost by 1 vote and believe then and now that the 7-member board would have actually approved this project. Now, I recognize the irony in that I am speaking to a 6-member board right now. But in this case, the petitioner he's just out of time and resources to continue to delay on this project, having first appeared on this project without me, but previous council all the way back in May of 2021, almost 3.5 years ago on this project. So on that, I would ask for the board's sense of fairness on considering approval even on that point. But maybe even the more relevant reason is why it goes to the, I think the level of collaboration that does in fact occur between the board and the development community. And I'm glad Member Wewell is here. And in this case, Member Wewell asked the petitioner if they would be willing to replace parking for living space. And the petitioner took that concern seriously and then re-vetted this concept with the Gate of Heaven Neighborhood Association. But the neighborhood association felt very strongly about the need for parking in this area, and they changed their previous position of neutral to one of support and cited the importance of parking in their letter, which I submitted to this board. I do want to point out, however, that the 2 parking spaces are actually half of what is required for this proposal. There's actually, it would require 4 spaces by code. So, I mean, that right there alone does represent some forward momentum to, I think, where the board was trying to go. And I understand that there's not always unanimity between the board's position, the code, and the neighborhood association. But here there was a true effort made to consider the alternative plan proposed. And notwithstanding the fact that the plan was not ultimately adopted, I would just ask the board to reconsider their position, given the very good faith effort that was made here to try to get there by the petitioner. And then the third and final reason is that this is a shallow lot, and this is the exact type of lot that zoning was made for, I guess. The zoning contemplates it's relief based on shallow lots and other type of lots like that. And that's why we were here in the first place. So I'll pause there, Madam Chair. I hope that these arguments have moved the board a little bit.
Thank you, Attorney Ross. Are there questions from the board? Okay, I hear no questions from the board. Is someone prepared to put forward a motion?
Also, Madam Chair, just to clarify, the vote is just whether or not it can be reconsidered, not whether or not to support the project, just as a reminder.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. So yes, we are just voting on rehearing the case. Are there any questions from the board? Is there a motion from the board?
Motion to approve, motion for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stembridge?
Yes.
Mr. Valencia?
Yes.
Mr. Langham? Mr.
Yes.
Langham?
Yes,
Ms.
yes.
Wewell? Thank you. Ms. Wewell?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, the motion carries.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, thank everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.
Have a good day, folks.